Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers out there in the audience, and yes, that includes you and you. Today we have an absolutely fascinating tale out of Kansas City, Missouri, where the prosecutor declined to charge a case that on its surface, as originally presented, looks like a solid self-defense claim. Now, what we're going to do in this video is go over what's being portrayed on social media, what's being portrayed by the local news, talk about the prosecution's decision, and then I'm going to fill you in on the whole story, and I'm going to see what you guys believe actually should be done in the case at hand. However, this video is in fact sponsored, and it's a good sponsor because we're going to talk about how cold it is and you got to heat your home, and I'm going to help you out. So we're going to toss it to the sponsor and then bring it back over here and discuss on the other side. A new report shows that in the coming winter months, it's going to be much more expensive to heat your home. In fact, on average, the American people are expected to spend $177 more a month just to heat their home. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go broke trying not to freeze to death in my apartment. This is one of the reasons why I am partnering with GetMiniHeater.com. This little device is absolutely perfect in order to save you money and make sure you don't freeze. You see, one of the problems with your home heating system is that you likely have a central home heating system. So in order to heat the room that you're in, you have to heat every room in the house. Well, if you get this little mini heater, put it in the room that you're actually in, you can warm yourself up for a fraction of the cost. This thing will pay for itself in basically a month or two. On top of that, if you go to GetMiniHeater.com, you can get 45% off. Try it for 60 days, risk-free, and if you don't like it, just send it back. That's GetMiniHeater.com, GetMiniHeater.com. So I'm scrolling on Twitter.com/I need to find things to be angry at so then I can make videos for you guys in order to line my own pockets, and all of a sudden I come across this video posted by the Kansas City Discover account, an account that I absolutely never heard of, talking about a self-defense situation where recently the charges were dropped against a woman who was just defending her boyfriend. So I click on the video, and my initial reaction to this video was this was a legitimate self-defense case, and I'm going to play it for you. However, I do want to warn you, there is some wrestling in here. I'm not going to show you anything lethally violent or anything like that, but it is very crucial that you see specifically this excerpt of the video before we move forward. So originally I was going to show you this video because this video is kind of crucial to understanding the story, but of course YouTube decided that they were not only going to demonetize my video, but age restrict it because allegedly there's graphic violence. Now let me explain something to you. There's no graphic violence in this clip. You want to know how I know that? Because this clip comes from the local news, meaning that it has to meet FCC guidelines. But because YouTube is immovable on the assertion that this is graphic violence, we're going to have to describe this as what it is, which is a large Italian man, and I'll show you some stills here and there, on top of a smaller black person, and there's a gun involved, and all that. I am so sorry that YouTube, for whatever ungodly reason, makes it so that I can't show you these actual videos, but it is what it is, so I'll have to retract it. For those of you who are members on my website, Patreon, Subscribestar, thank you so much. You've seen the clip. Everybody else, links in the description.
Let it go! Let it go! Stop! Cell phone video captured some of that fight between 41-year-old Anthony Santi and 23-year-old Javon Taylor.
Bro, what are you doing, bro?
Witnesses tell KMBC the fight may have lasted as long as 10 minutes.
Get out! My kid's in this car! Stop! You killing him?
Javon Taylor's girlfriend pulled out a gun and ultimately killed Anthony Santi.
So that's the video, and I will say the girlfriend in this instance sounds really panicked, she sounds really scared, and you could understand, based on stumbling upon this scene at this moment, how this could clearly and obviously be a self-defense case. Anthony Santi, or Tony Santi as his family like to call him, is a relatively big guy. He's a firefighter, and obviously he is winning the fight at this point, according to the 30 seconds that we got from Kansas City Discover. Also, there's a component of harmful stereotypes that are at play, whether you notice it or not. So obviously, Anthony Santi, as I just stated, is a really big guy. He's also a really big Italian male, or male of Italian descent. And I don't know about you guys, but I've seen Jersey Shore. You probably heard of Jersey Shore, and these really big, juiced up Italians tend to present themselves as really aggressive in our pop culture media, so you could see how this bodybuilder looking kind of guy being on top of the much smaller young man could lead people out there in the public to believe that this is a clear and obvious instance of self-defense. So everything is kind of aligned based on her reaction, her screams, they're very troubling, and the fact that this guy is so much bigger, and the fact that he's clearly winning the fight, for people to think that this is clearly and obviously a self-defense case. And right now, at this point, I totally agreed with that. I hear the girlfriend giving a ton of warnings. I hear the girlfriend trying desperately to physically remove this person from her boyfriend. So everything seems to line up for a perfect self-defense case, or defense of others, which is what we're actually talking about, but it's the same principle. Just as you are allowed to preserve your own life, you are allowed to preserve the life of others. And the fact that the news broadcaster said that she pulled out a gun, and other reports have said that she got a gun from her glove box, seems to make this all aligned to make a perfect self-defense case. And while it's unfortunate for Anthony Santi, obviously this is a self-defense case, right? Now, obviously, if I'm covering this story, there's more to it because we're only at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minute mark at this point in the video. So there is more to this tale. And one of the things that's a big indicator in this video is the fact that we're only seeing 30 seconds, and supposedly the altercation lasted around 10 minutes. Now, I will say, apparently the altercation lasted up to 10 minutes according to witness time. Whenever you're witnessing a tragic event or something like that, your time frame as an eyewitness might not actually be that long. What we would need to see is some kind of surveillance video that would give us a better indication of time. Now, what could have happened in that 10 minutes in order to start this altercation? What could we have seen in other videos or in other evidence that could have led us to believe that maybe this isn't the clear-cut self-defense case that you would believe it to be? Now, before I cut over to that, I will point out that a local news agency actually talked to the author of Missouri's self-defense statutes, which are written pretty well in favor of the defender in this instance. So we'll get his take on this situation so you get the full information for the defense before we move forward.
We showed the video to a practicing attorney of 40 years in self-defense who wrote Missouri's book on it.
Technically, it's called the defense of justification. And your justification is you are saving the life of another person.
Some say Santi died a hero, jumping to the defense of a female clerk facing verbal abuse from Taylor. Jameson says in most cases it would be important to know who started the fight, but it may not be necessary in this one.
The girlfriend is only constrained by what she reasonably believed to be the circumstances. And if she didn't see the start of the fight, as far as she knows, all she knows is her boyfriend is getting strangled.
Now, according to the self-defense expert, it is not 100% clear-cut that starting the fight would indicate that you're not in a self-defense scenario. If the girlfriend didn't realize who started the fight, and obviously she sees somebody in peril, or anybody sees somebody in peril, and they don't know the origin of the fight, they are not losing of the privilege of self-defense if they make a decision based on when they arrive upon the scene of the fight. So to be clear, that cuts in favor of the person who pulled the trigger, which is the girlfriend in this instance. However, we need to talk about when the gun was introduced into the scenario, how the fight was started, so that we could get the whole picture, because what might have actually occurred here is an injustice. And I will go to the beginning, because apparently this all started over the boyfriend going into the store trying to get cigars or cigarellos or cigarettes, and them not having the brand that he wanted at that moment. And of course, the boyfriend decided to respond to this by cursing out, threatening, and attacking the store clerk verbally. This caused Anthony Santi to jump in and defend her verbally, and this is what the local news seems to be painting as the start of the altercation. Javon Taylor obviously took exception with what Anthony Santi said, and they started fighting. Anthony Santi started winning the fight. The girlfriend comes in, obviously the girlfriend's self-defense case, but no, this is not actually what happened. You see, the physical altercation did not start at the point where they were arguing about how Javon Taylor was treating the store clerk. And as we all know, even if he was berating the store clerk, while that's not socially acceptable, that doesn't make a deadly force situation, that doesn't make a violent situation. Therefore, we should not say just because he was being rude to somebody in customer service, he is in fact guilty. However, what I will assert is that when Javon Taylor decided, after a verbal altercation with Anthony Santi, to go out to his vehicle, get a firearm, come back into the store in order to confront Anthony Santi, then we're in a completely different situation. And apparently, according to the witnesses, that is exactly what happened. So what we're seeing at the time of the video is Santi trying to wrestle somebody who brought a gun into an argument. On top of that, they were fighting in the store. So well before they're out in the parking lot, they were struggling for the gun. So this ended up spilling outside of the store, but now you know that Taylor is the one who introduced the gun into the situation, and he introduced it into the situation in a totally indefensible way, in a totally unjustifiable way, but it actually gets much, much worse. You see, the news seems to be under the impression that she pulled the gun out of her purse or pulled the gun out of the vehicle or something similar to that. But that's actually not the case. It turns out that Anthony Santi, not just some random violent Italian guy who decided to tackle this young man for no reason. It turns out Anthony Santi was wrestling the man while he had the gun, and this still image actually shows Javon Taylor handing the gun to his girlfriend prior to when the video starts, which ultimately led to the shooting. So Javon Taylor actively had the gun in his hand at the time that they were wrestling. Javon Taylor brought the gun in order to threaten somebody over an argument, and Anthony Santi had every reason to believe that this insane person who pulled a gun on him was a threat to his life, so he's trying to pin him in order to save his own life. So the girlfriend pleading for him to get off and all of that jazz, not really relevant when he thinks that this guy has a gun and is going to kill him. Anthony Santi was fighting for his life in this scenario, not realizing that the criminal in this case, Javon Taylor, handed the gun off to his girlfriend, and his girlfriend would ultimately take the final shot. Again, for podcast viewers, here you can clearly see the gun in Taylor's hand, Anthony Santi on top of Taylor, and Taylor's girlfriend grabbing the gun. This is the exchange. So the idea that this woman had no idea why the fight started, or this woman was just trying to save her boyfriend's life, who was totally in the right, or this woman just happened to have stumbled on this situation is incorrect. Remember, Javon Taylor goes into the store, he gets pissed off because he's talking bad to a store clerk, Anthony Santi sticks up for the female store clerk, and then Taylor goes back out to the car, where this woman is, by the way, grabs a gun because he's got to settle something. On top of that, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I started to notice it once I started seeing what Kansas City Discover was lying about related to this case, but it appears that Taylor is wearing a mask. Now, I don't know about you guys, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of what are pre-attack indicators, but when somebody leaves a store after a verbal altercation and then goes to their car and gets a weapon and may or may not come back with a face covering, me thinks this is a dangerous situation. Now, to be clear, when I said that I thought he was coming out with a mask, I didn't see the higher resolution version of the video. It would appear to me, based on the higher resolution version of the video, that that is in fact a skull cap or do-rag that happens to be in and around his face. I'm open to correction later, but the higher resolution video makes it clear that it's likely not a mask. Please disregard or take those claims with a grain of salt from me. I said them before I saw a higher copy of the video. Now, I've heard people say that what's on the ground in this video are shell casings, and essentially this would be indicative of more shots being fired, whether they be warning shots or not, or possibly shots being fired during Santi's attempt to pin Taylor, which would heighten the sense of urgency. However, I cannot confirm that based on the low resolution of the video. I've seen local news videos where it looks a little clear, but I have no idea what the origin of those shots or those potential shell casings would be. Therefore, I don't want to speculate on it because I don't think it changes significantly what we're talking about in terms of whether or not this is a self-defense case. He thinks, as someone who actually has two brain cells to run together, that I might be in danger in this situation, and I think it is perfectly reasonable for Anthony Santi, Tony Santi, the firefighter, the person who is not a criminal, the person who is not facing federal weapons charges, because guess what? There's something illegal about this firearm. Maybe we have a felony prohibited possessor in this situation, or maybe this gun had a filed off serial number, or any of the other issues. I think Anthony Santi actually had every right to react in the way that he did because his life was in peril. I think Anthony wrestling somebody who pulled a gun on him without any justification to the ground and trying to pin this person when he had every reason to believe that this person still had the firearm on him makes perfect sense. And I think the girlfriend shooting Santi while he's wrestling the person he thinks has the gun that was pulled on him, is not something that is justifiable. I don't think it's fitting. I don't think it's sensible. So I think that the prosecutor, who unsurprisingly is a Democratic prosecutor, who unsurprisingly refuses to charge a bunch of people and has to make excuses for it, dropped the ball on this case.
At a forum on crime tonight, Jackson County Prosecutor Jean Peters Baker addressed concerns she says she hears frequently that she returns too many yellow sheets or notices she's declined to file charges.
An officer will be upset because maybe won't understand why that case was declined.
But says data shows she files charges at the same rate as Platte and Clay counties.
But if a case is declined, it's just declined because we don't believe there's sufficient evidence to get to that highest burden of proof.
Peters Baker, who declined an interview after that forum tonight, said through a statement earlier today she grieves with the family and community over the tragic loss of life, but after careful review, had to consider Missouri law.
However, I will say, and I will give this caveat, that the girlfriend at certain points may or may not have limited culpability, because the girlfriend, even though Taylor clearly went back to the car to get the gun, to start a fight for no reason, even though there may or may not be the presence of him trying to mask up, obvious pre-attack indicator, something that should alert you, is still in a situation where she's watching her boyfriend lose the fight when he has a gun, because her boyfriend is not only unbelievably cowardly and unbelievably emotionally weak, but he's physically weak in this situation. So I can understand why she in a panic might actually pull the trigger, and I'm willing to accept some limited culpability for her. However, we actually have something in this country, and it exists across the nation, called felony murder. And in my view, when you go out and pull a gun and you bring it back in, and when I say in my view, I mean in terms of the law, and you threaten somebody with it, that's aggravated assault. Anthony Santi died as a result of the consequences of Javon Taylor's aggravated assault. So guess what? He should be tagged with felony murder. Yet the woke district attorney, the left-wing district attorney, the Democratic district attorney for Jackson County isn't charging people. So she didn't even charge him, even though felony murder can totally fit. Even if a reasonable person could say that the girlfriend had no knowledge that her boyfriend, who came to the car, grabbed a firearm, brought that firearm in to deal with a verbal confrontation, was in the wrong. In reality, in actuality, Javon Taylor is 100% in the wrong. Anthony Santi is in fact in the right. He was defending himself. And there should be felony murder charges attached to Javon Taylor because Javon Taylor had no justification for what he did. And by the way, the police know this. The police brought this up. They put this forward. It was the district attorney that rejected it. By the way, activists like Kansas City Discover know this. There's a reason why they hack up the video in order to present the case in such a manner when obviously still images like this show us that Javon Taylor has the firearm in his hand and he hands it off to the girlfriend. The idea being that if you never see this guy with the firearm in hand, you would never think to yourself, well, Anthony Santi, a 40-something-year-old fireman, father, likely wouldn't attack him for no reason. Anthony Santi, who has no criminal record, no history of anything like this, likely wouldn't be going crazy because he got angry for no reason. What actually happened here is Javon Taylor brought a gun to settle an argument that he started by being angry at a store clerk for a store being out of stock on a certain item, and somebody ended up dying. And what you find out when you look at all these factors in their totality is that this is a complete and utter miscarriage of justice.
The argument, the fighting was like around 10 minutes, so it just escalated from there. So that's how you can tell it was a bit tragic the way it escalated.
Friends say Santi loved his daughter, his family, and the outdoors. They say he was known to stand up for what he thought is right.
He was protecting and being the person that he is. Dying, of course he died a hero because he loved helping people.
Loved ones are in disbelief about what happened. A witness tells KNBC that Santi heard a man disrespect a woman cashier and he stood up for her. Then the argument began. Police say Taylor grabbed a gun. The woman outside fires the fatal round.
And I don't think it's too far-fetched to say that Jean Peters Baker, who didn't put charges on in this case, the only charges that Javon Taylor are facing are federal weapons charges, did so because of the racial makeup of this case. This is one of those equity prosecutors. This is somebody who has been criticized time and time again for refusing to do her job, and wouldn't you know it, it just so happens in a clear and obvious case where the boyfriend indisputably is in the wrong, she decided to stand idle and say, we have no case to put forward. Apparently, in Missouri, you are able, according to this district attorney, to argue with the store clerk over them not having your cigarellos, then go out to your car, get a gun, come back in, and then when the person actually wrestles you for the gun, in order to save their own life, you can hand the gun off to your buddy, to your girlfriend, and they can shoot this person, even though the person that got shot was clearly defending a store clerk and then defending himself from what was obviously a deadly threat. So guess what? Jean Peters Baker, you're going to get contacted by members in my audience. I will list the contact information for her office, and I want you guys to demand, because even though it's ambiguous about the girlfriend, that we get justice for Anthony Santi, because what's not ambiguous is that Javon Taylor needs to face felony murder charges. He committed a felony, it was totally unjustifiable, and a firefighter, a father, a standard bearer for the community, ended up dying because of it. Justice for Anthony Santi, and to hell with these woke district attorneys that refuse to do their damn job.
It's a horrible thing to happen at such a young age. It's just, it's mind-blowing right now. I'm just still in shock.
Friends say Santi chose to be a firefighter to help others.
We did it to help people. You know, there was a lot of things, you know, he could have done.
They hope his daughter knows how much he cared.
And if she can hear this, I just want her to know how much he loved her. He really, really loved her, and all he ever wanted to do was protect her.
But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like the video, you show them by leaving a like. You subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. Again, go to the links available in the description of not only this video, but of the podcast, and contact this woman. This has been me talking about injustice once again. Till next time.